Welcome, everyone, to the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. I'm your host, Desiree Stanley. And with me today is my guest, Jennifer McCormack. Welcome to the show, Jennifer. I'm so excited to have you on. We're going to be talking about some super fascinating topic today. And Jennifer, you're the owner, founder of the Jennifer McCormack Wellness. And we were talking before we started, and you're a clinical hypnotherapist, strategic psychotherapist, kinesiologist, and a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner. And again, I'm so excited to talk about these fascinating subjects. So welcome to the show. Tell us how this all came to be for you.
First of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's always great to come in front of a new audience and talk about all this stuff. And you're right, I do have an array of qualifications under my belt. And it was never an objective to do all these different things, but I found that they were necessary to get the results that not only that I wanted for my clients, but what they wanted for themselves. And at the beginning, I was in corporate. I had a corporate job of 20 years in fashion design and absolutely loved it. And one day I had a car accident. I was in a five-car pileup and I sprained my spine, and I was told to go see this woman that was a kinesiologist. At the time, I'd never heard of what that was. But I went to see her, and Desiree, I went in there in full pain from top of my neck to the base of my spine. And I walked out with no pain at all. Zero, nothing, after 1 hour. And I'm like, I actually don't know what this woman did to me, but I know what she did was miraculous. And so from then on, it kind of got me very fascinated with kinesiology, and it helped me in different aspects of my life, from physical to a lot of, stresses in business and things like that. But after I had my 2 children, I wanted to change careers. The corporate world was too busy. I didn't want to sacrifice being a mum or parts of motherhood for the corporate world. So I went to study kinesiology, and at the beginning, I was working very clinical. I was working with babies that couldn't sleep, helping them rebalance their birth traumas. I was doing a lot of gut health stuff. And what I found was that the body, through shifting the energy, would just heal itself. And it wasn't about me healing the body. It was about giving the body a natural, balanced state to be in, and then it does the work itself. And that totally fascinated me, because we worked on so many different things, from gut health to, as I said, baby sleeping. We worked to help children grow when they weren't growing as quickly as what they should have. We worked on anxiety and depression. And through all of this, I started working with business owners. And it just happened one day that one of my clients was a business owner, and she came to me for gut health issues. And what we noticed, that the correlation between her physical body healing and her business would expand as well. Now, some of us would go on, that's just a coincidence, it's timing, right? She feels better, she acts, she does better. But I'm such a stickler for research. And I'm like, I want to know if there's something here or not. And for those of you that know kinesiology, it's when we bring the energy forward of the problem. So in the time, the problem was the bloating and the digestive problem. And we want to bring forward the energy of the solution. Well, the solution is no bloating, a functional digestive system. And the body, through muscle testing, which is basically what kinesiology is the body will tell you how to get from point A to point B, what emotions need to be released, how the energy needs to be rebalanced, and would go and do that. So instead, we're like, well, what if I put in that I have 10 clients, I want 12? And will the body tell us what emotions we need to release, what beliefs are there that we need to rewire to be able to energetically bring in 2 more clients a week? And Desiree, it just started to work. And so I got so fascinated with this. My first ever client in this was about 7 years ago. She was a business strategist, which I'm like, brilliant, because I'm not a strategist, but I know energetics and I know mindset. And she was going through a lull at the time. I'm like, okay, you and I both know that your strategy used to work, but for whatever reason, it's not working for you right now. So don't change your strategy, continue to work it, and we'll work on the energetics and the mindset together. So for 4 weeks, we came together once a week to work on that. Now, we worked on things like how her parents perceived business, because her parents perceived business very risky. So she always had this underlying guilt of, should I be doing it? Should I not? Is it too risky? Should I just go and get a job which is more stable, and these sort of things? So we stabilized her where she wanted to be. We looked at what energetic routines she needed to bring into her own self-care. We looked at emotions that she needed to release. So at the end of this month, Desiree, she ended up with $9,997.
Wow. That's so fascinating.
It is, and it continues to fascinate me today, because through just shifting energy, that we can get such massive results, even with implementing no additional strategy. So the reason I brought on these other modalities is because I noticed some of us women get stuck. We get stuck in our head. We get stuck creating these stories that are not real. And while the energetics works really great up from the energy to the cellular to the mind, sometimes we need to work on it from the mindset down. We need to shift that mentality. We need to shift that we're stuck. We need to shift that, that women really haven't been given a lot of chance to succeed with business and money for really that long in the whole element of the world. So that's when hypnosis and NLP come in, because of very cognitive shifts. And then the other modalities that I do, which is NRT as well, which is neuro reprocessing. So what that ends up to be, it works very well with technical and clinic PTSD. But when we look at it from an entrepreneurial business perspective, there's 2 ways that I utilize this tool. One, definitely a PTSD sort of approach. But what it's also really good for is good for rewiring the brain around anything that we perceive as a negative. So it's good at, you grab a negative and it turns it into a positive or neutral state with getting your conscious mind out of the way. It works on a subconscious level where you can consciously see what's happening in real time. And it's quite fascinating. So this is where things like women that I've worked with that have been abused from a young age and being paid to keep quiet,
Mm,
that's actually a lot more common than what you think. And therefore they have such a hard time accepting money, right? So
yeah.
that's a sort of trauma that we need to rewire. Or even when we come from poverty, when we come from immigrant family, and wealth, success, anything winning in life is such a foreign experience. Not only foreign for you, but foreign for everyone that you've ever known around you. So they're the kind of trauma that we get to rewire. But there's the other aspect of that is, I know that that tool can rewire your brain, right? Without you having to think about it, without you having to tell your story again.
Mm,
So instead of putting in a negative first, what if we put in a goal, right? And what your brain will do is it will find all the reasons that goal can't be achieved from your perspective, rewire it to then balance into a neutral or positive state. And then you, with your mature mind that you have here and now, gets to take over. And that's where the fun gets to begin.
mm,
I tell you, I've had one client that I've been working with for 6 years now. And at the beginning, her business was a side hustle. She was a primary school teacher and she was tutoring on the side. Today, 6 years later, she's been seeing me every month for 6 years, working on the energetics of her business, working on financial goals, aligning her to new staff members. But we've also worked on physical and personal stuff, which I'll go through in a minute. And today she has a multi 6-figure business. She's just about to sell it because it's got to the level where She can either sell it or franchise it.
Mm.
She's a financially independent woman with the savings that she has always wanted in her world. And so her world is contrast to where it used to be. And of course, she's no longer in the classroom. She's full-time in her business. I think she has 6 or 7 staff now, looking to bring on 3 more in the new year. These are the changes that is so possible and so much more.
Mm.
But the reason for her that we've worked on things like her menstrual cycle, her sugar addictions that we've worked on, and we've worked on stresses in her relationship. Because what we know is, number one, you are your business, right? The stresses that you have as a parent, that stresses that you have in your relationship, whether you're focused on them while executing your business, that energy is there. And while your strategy could be pristine, the copy that is on your website, that is in your, in your content, the words that you say in your podcast could be perfect. The energy that is executing it doesn't lie.
Mm.
And when you're tapped into an energetic field, like we all are, whether we're conscious about it or not, we can feel that. You go onto Instagram and you scroll through, you can feel, especially if you have the sound off, you can feel the energy of every single post.
Mm.
You can feel if there's anger behind it. You can feel if there's joy behind it. You can feel if there's desperation behind it. And even so, the messaging could be on point. You're like, oh, there's something off there, and I don't exactly know what it is.
Yeah.
When I work with my women, it's not only on directly business related, but if you're having relationship problems, let's look at that, because that's going to translate into your business. And here's the other thing there is that I see there's 2 of our biggest personal development journeys in life, right? One is business, one is relationships. And when I find women have problems in their relationships, I don't say problems, but issues and troubles, most of the time, it's got to do with the way we communicate with our partner, or the way we feel our partner is communicating with us or not. What does that translate to in business? It translates to the way you communicate with your audience. Because there's one thing I teach my clients is that your external world mimics or mirrors your internal world. So if you're having trouble communicating with your partner, or he's not hearing you, or it's not landing with each other, or it's total mismatch when you're talking and it's just everyone's playing this guessing game, right? There is something within you that is not communicating properly because it's not landing with him and he's not landing with you. There's 2 sides to the story. What is your story? Because if you're not landing, or if you're not feeling that effective communication within your relationship, that is also translating into your business somehow. How does that translate? In some ways, your audience can't hear you.
Mm.
For some reason, your messaging is not landing with them. And you need to work out why.
Oh my gosh, it's so interesting that I mean, so many points that you made in there. I want to just run on different tracks and talk about, but what you just mentioned though about when you're scrolling through Instagram or you're seeing posts and something just feels off about it, and it's so interesting because I have noticed that sense as I'm looking at different posts, and it's like, that feeling that something's just not right here. It looks great, but it just doesn't feel right. And so it's so fascinating that you pointed that out because I have experienced that. And about how the energy within yourself and moving energy, because everything is energy, and energy is all around us. Life is energy. We are energy beings. I think is so fascinating and true. But what you talked about, the concept of the negative idea or things that maybe you grew up believing about, say, money or success, or like the example you gave of business, someone in business and how these kind of stories that were told to you that are underlying that just impact everything that you do going forward, whether you're really realizing it or not. And I think that's so interesting. And so changing the conversation that you're having with yourself about that. I love that. And so let's talk then about some of that rewiring, like dig into that a little bit more because it sounds like that's sort of what's happening, right? When you're changing the story.
It is because the reality is between 0 and 7 years old is when we are a sponge, right?
Mm,
We are observing the world. We are observing our parents. We are observing how they interact with each other, with other people, how they interact with their own money. And we take it on as truth. So the way that we look at money without doing any personal development work or any inner work is we're seeing money through the eyes or anything through the eyes of that 5-year-old, that 7-year-old, that 10-year-old, right? So here's an example here. I had a girl a while ago and she come from quite a wealthy family, but she realized that she couldn't save, that she was really bad managing her own money.
mm,
And we had a look at what dynamics did she see growing up. And she's like, well, we had everything that I thought we needed to have as from a child's perspective. What I did notice was my dad was the primary earner and he would give mum the money for groceries to get us kids whatever we needed and all that sort of stuff. But what she made that mean was that mum wasn't good managing money because dad drip fed it to her, or that's what she saw. So in turn, she made that mean women weren't good with managing money.
mm,
Anytime you need it, you needed to ask for it. In other words, she wasn't good with managing money. So that is not her ultimate truth, but that is her truth that set in from that younger version of her.
mhm,
Through these tools, we're allowed to let that belief go and allow the mature, she was 26-year-old brain take over, which says managing money is not a belief, it's a skill. And then I can bring on the skills to make myself good at doing this. Just like the skill of riding a bike, just as the skill, as she was as a beautician, just as the skill of being a beauty therapist, right? A lot of these are skills that we don't realize are skills because we're stuck in the belief that we're not good enough,
mm,
that it can't happen to us. Well, if we were a baby and we looked at an adult walking like, oh, I could never do that, and didn't realize it was a skill that we could learn would never walk. But we don't have those beliefs set in at that age. So we give it a go. We mimic, right? And this is why your 6-week OB appointment, I didn't realize this until I was actually postnatal a little bit with my second child. I can tell if a woman is postnatal by looking at the child
mm.
because the baby won't smile if the mother has postnatal depression because the baby mimics everything that you do. It'll mimic your actions and your beliefs. So the moment that you have a belief that's set in that you can't do something, well, one, it's not your belief. You just mimicked it. You mimicked it from a person or from the environment. And then you get to rewire that and go, okay, how can I think now? What skills do I need to close the gap? Sometimes they're physical, actionable skills. Sometimes they're thought processing skills. And this is where the strategic psychotherapy comes into it. Because what is the skill that underlies a lot of things is the belief that things can change, right? When we sit in anxiety, when we sit in depression, when we sit in addiction, one of the underlying skill gaps is the belief that things stay the same forever. And you hear this a lot. I'm a depressed person. I'm an anxious person. Well, you're actually not. You're a person that's experiencing the depression, you're a person that's experiencing anxiety. It's not part of you and it can change. Then there is the skill of compartmentalization. Can I grab this thought and put it aside and do something else for a moment? Can I grab this thought and observe it and go, is it useful? Is it real? Do I need it right now? Because there's a lot of thoughts that we have in our head, one that are not real, especially us as women. We are so good at filling in the knowledge gap between facts with stuff that's not real. I used this analogy the other day with a client, and I'm like, well, if your husband's driving home, like he's left work because he's given you a call. You're assuming he hasn't stopped on the way. So when you check the clock at 30 minutes and he should be here and he's not here, you're going into this mental overdrive. Where is he? What's he doing? Has he had an accident? Babe, he's just stopped up to get petrol on the way home. Right. So there's that. We're very good at creating this, feeling the unknown with stuff that's just not facts. So then can we identify what's real and what's not real? All right, I actually don't know the gap here. One, is it worth knowing? Or let's actually find out. So there's that skill in identifying what you've made up and what is real. Because sometimes what you've made up feels so real.
Mm.
But then there's those feelings. Let's say someone's betrayed you. Let's say, let's take business, for example. And there are people that just do not support you. They don't get it. They think it's risky. They've never been in that world. And so they can't really fully get behind you because they think, you're creating instability in your life.
Mm-hmm.
That makes you feel unsupported, unheard, unsafe. What do you do with those feelings? Because they're real. But are they useful?
Well, no, not really.
Right? So when they're not useful, can you then learn? Do you have the skill to let them go? Because especially in an example like that, when you are reacting on someone else's reaction, you can't control how they show up. You can't control what they say. You can't control their internal beliefs. But what you can control is how you react to it and how you see it.
Yes,
Mhm.
always. Yeah.
So it's having that skill to do that. That's where strategic psychotherapy comes into place, is giving you the skill in the ways that we process information so things can feel better for us. Things can feel copable. Things can feel like they're within our control. And that's what's important. Once we take control back, we can do anything. But once we give our power away to people, to governments, to ideals, to beliefs that do not work for you, you feel stuck. It's the same notion of, can women succeed in business? If you are giving your power away to the paradigm that says there's inequality, if you're giving your power away to the paradigm that says that women aren't good enough to have multi-million-dollar businesses, you will never make it, because the power is not in your hands. The power is in some external force that you're waiting to give you permission to succeed.
Yeah.
The moment you say, I'm just going to do it me anyway, this is my dream, this is my goal, I will get the mindset, I'll obtain the skills that I need to make it happen, you can go and make it happen. You actually don't need an external anything to give you permission to go down the path that you want to go down.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. That is such a great point, because we do often look for that external validation or approval when it's not necessary. It really all does begin inside, in ourselves. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about creating that shift then. And let's talk about the energetics and like, how do we make those shifts, and what is happening there?
Good question. So there's shifts that we can create on multiple levels. There's the shifts that I get my clients to contribute to making, and then there's the shifts that I do as a practitioner. So one thing, where do we start? We start with identifying two things, and this is what everyone can start with right now. Where are you at right now? And a lot of us are really good at creating a picture that is prettier than what it actually is. And I hear this all the time. I have no problem with success. I will embrace it. I can imagine myself in it. But the moment they start stepping into it and seeing the reactions in other places to their success is when they retreat. Let's have a look at exactly where you are and be honest with yourself, right? Be honest with the fears that you have. Be honest with the dreams that you have. A lot of people, when they speak their dreams out loud, they speak it smaller than what it is in fear of judgment. Or they want to make it realistic. Realistic to who, I say. So, number one, honesty on where you are. Honesty on where you want to go. And then I want you to look at external to you. What are you currently seeing in your world? Because this is going to give you a really good indication of what's happening internally. Just like we were talking about before with the relationship with the spouse. Okay, how are they interacting with you? How are you interacting with them? But that goes for everything. We bring into our world everything that we are. So are you seeing people fighting constantly? Are you seeing wealth around you? Are you walking down the street and seeing an old couple holding hands and they look like they're totally in love and they're, 85 or whatever? Like, what are you seeing? Because this is going to be a real good indication on what your cognitive bias is. So if it's not what you really want to see, there's something internal that gets to shift. And this is the hard part. You get to be curious with yourself, but you need to drop the ego to do it, right? Because the ego is going to be there to protect you. Oh, I'm not judgmental. I don't hate anyone, but you're seeing all this hate around. Like, for a moment, let's just go, all right, I'm seeing a lot of anger in the world. What in me still holds a little bit of anger? Could it be frustration or anger about anything that's ever happened to me that I've never fully processed? If I'm seeing a lack in my bank balance is not where I want it to be. Where am I holding a lack within myself? Or, on the contrary, where am I not feeling safe in abundance?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, your brain is helping you to survive, not to thrive. So if you are reaching outside your comfort zone to earn money, it's going to want to, it's like a rubber band, right? It's going to pop you right back in if you don't do the work around it. So what people find, I was talking to a girl the other day, and she goes, something happened 6 weeks ago and I haven't been able to make a sale since. I'm like, tell me what happened 6 weeks ago. She goes, I sold my signature package and it was great. It's a few $1,000s. I was on top of the world. I'm like, isn't that interesting? How all of a sudden you've got this influx of money in a lump sum that's come back in, and your internal world has gone, no more sales, no more sales, no more sales, because it doesn't feel safe with all that money.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden, you're going to start making sales again, let me guess, when that money's run out. Right? So you get to be really curious on what's happening in your reality and go, well, maybe I don't feel safe with this money, and feel it in your body. Your physical body will tell you what's going on.
Mhm.
Here's the thing. With women, we have been blessed with a beautiful, heightened sense of intuition. But intuition speaks to us on 3 levels. One, it's through our clairs, right? Through our normal intuition stream. And it's always there. It's never not there. But sometimes the external noise can dampen it. It's like having this radio that's constantly on in the background. It's sending us beautiful, intuitive messages, but the kids are happening, life's happening, Christmas is happening, New Year's, and all this stuff is drowning out our intuitive noise. So then When we don't listen to it through our normal intuitive channels, it comes through our emotions, the anger, the joy, the frustration, the doubt, the anxious anxiety. And then when we ignore that, because we're really good at ignoring our emotions sometimes, we just get on with things, we feel it in our body. And this is what I was talking about before, is when I work with my clients on their menstrual cycle or back pain or gut health. And this is why working on clients' gut health used to help their business. Because when we have a look at gut health and we have a look at the large intestine, what emotions sit in the large intestine? Main one is self-doubt. If we are doubting ourselves, if we don't feel like we're good enough, if we don't feel like we're worthy of that overflow of money, not just making ends meet, right? That energy stagnation happens in the large intestine. So the more you can get your digestive system flowing, yes, it does mean you can get your money flowing beautifully. Go and work on your gut health, right? If that's a problem, because it's telling you that there is an energetic blockage there. So there are multiple ways that you know that you have blockages in that area. I have a book that I brought out actually, which is called What Your Body is Telling You About Your Business. And this goes into every muscle of the body where energetic stagnation can occur if you have energetic blockages that is preventing you from creating the business and life that you want. As well as the stagnation happens in the organs. When we look at traditional Chinese medicine, the organs are related to an emotion that's related to a muscle.
Mm.
It all correlates. That's why the density of the vibration of the energy, when it's not landing through our intuition, gets stronger and stronger until we feel it physically.
Mhm.
And that's when we get to go, okay, I have middle back pain, I have upper back pain, I have digestive issues, I have menstrual cramps, I have whatever. This is my body sending me messages. Now, here's the thing. Can we heal the body physically purely on an energetic level? There's a yes and a no answer to that. Right? Because just like when I had my car accident and sprained my spine and inflamed all the muscles and things around it, because I got it early enough, yes. But after a while, it starts to damage the cells, the physical cells, which means I do believe that sometimes we do need Western medicine or herbs or, Eastern medicine to help the cellular level perform, so then the energetics can take over. Sometimes there needs to be a correlation between them both. But if you're just using herbs, if you're just using Western medicine and not doing the energetics behind it, it will do one of two things. It will heal and then come back, or it will heal and come back in another way.
Mm.
So your body's constantly sending you messages. And it's for you to look at these messages from the mature brain that you have now and not that 5-year-old brain that you used to have, and go, how can I look at this now? What feels right for me, where this can land in a perspective that feels on par with my path? Because the reality is that you and I can have different views, but they can still feel right for us individually. And so you're not looking for the truth, you're looking for your truth for you right now. And being flexible that, you know what, next week that truth might change for you. And that's okay. Because as you change, as you evolve, your truth, your perception will all evolve with you. It's allowing that evolution to happen that creates a growth beyond where you've ever noticed it before. The growth beyond the experience you had in the family dynamics as a child. The growth outside of your comfort zone more than you could have ever imagined. And that's all about evolving your perspective on life.
Oh my gosh, Jennifer, this is so amazing. I love what you're sharing, talking about how we have that intuitive voice that if we just ignore it and the emotions or the whatever that pops up, then we ignore that. And then it shows up in the body. And then we often ignore that and keep trying to move forward until it stops us. And then you really have to resolve the problem, right? I just think that's so, so interesting. So thank you for sharing that because it's a reminder to look at what is happening. If there is something happening physically, what is happening, and then try to discover why and dig back into that. And I think that's a great, great reminder. And talking about how sometimes it is necessary to use the Western medicine, but you can't just solve the one side of it. Sometimes it's necessary to look at all aspects of it to find the true resolution. And so taking in Eastern medicine, talking about acupuncture, I mean, all of this is fantastic. And I think it's so great to remember that you're talking about complex things, the mind, the body, and all of the energy and all of that. And it can't always be solved with just one thing.
That's why, like, even looking at the mind, and that's why I brought on all these different modalities, is because
Right.
there's not one size fits all for every single person. Whether you might need some hypnotherapy, the next person may not,
Mhm.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's remembering that. I look at my analogy is the brick feather truck analogy, right? So the feather is the first intuitive guidance. It's the intuition. The brick is life throwing things at you a little bit harder, giving you some bigger hurdles. The truck is when we lose our job. The truck is when our bank account goes to zero. The truck is when, the universe is going, she's not listening. I literally have to stop her in her tracks for her just to shut up for 5 minutes and go, there is a message here for you. So here's the thing. Know when you get the truck to stop and listen to it. Know when you get the truck that you've asked for it, right? Because it's your energy, your internal guidance, trying to wave that red flag in front of you and going, you're going the wrong way, lady. Like, let's do a little, detour to get back on par. But remembering there is always a feather.
Mm.
There is always a feather. And every time I see a bird's feather in front of me on the ground, it is my reminder that there is always a feather.
Oh,
And
yeah,
that
that's great. I love that analogy because it is, the visual of that. Absolutely. I think we can all relate to the visual and the experience. And it's brilliant. I love it. For sure, when those truck moments happen, that's when you really go, "Okay, I get it now." But we can avoid that, it sounds like, if we're paying attention to the feather,
yeah.
and I love that. So fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Good stuff. Yeah. Well, let's talk now a little bit about maybe how we can overcome some of the hurdles that we are, placing in our own paths because we do this so often, I think, as women. And we've touched on it a little bit, but let's talk a little bit more, I think, about maybe some things that we can do to stop doing that.
I think one of the biggest things that all of us women need to get a little bit better at, Desiree, is creating boundaries for ourselves.
Mm.
So, what do boundaries mean? Boundaries mean that we can trust ourselves more. Boundaries mean that we know where we are and we know where we want to go. So, when we have this clear starting point and a somewhat clear destination, because that will always change,
Yeah.
we can create a route. And what the route says is that every decision I make in life for everything will either take me one step closer or one step away from where I want to go. And we need to start to learn to gain the courage to say no to things that are not in alignment with our path forward. Now, that is no to external people and also no to ourselves. That's to say no to toxic relationships and friendships. That's to say no to the things that you don't want to do, that you think you should do. It's no to people pleasing. It's to start to learn to say no because you know it's going to take you off course. And I always say to women, there is a difference between people pleasing and helping people. One, you're filling your cup up first before stepping forward. One is depleting you before you even start, right? And because a lot of women love to help, and I get that, so do I, but you can't do it at your own detriment. So number one is boundaries. When we have a clear destination and a clear starting point, when we have boundaries around that, we trust ourselves more. And this is one of the biggest things with women is we've learned to lose our trust over time because we're constantly listening to what other people think we should do, how we should look, how we should show up, how we should dress, how we should behave, how we should mother. And we've learned that because we've learned to focus on other people's goals, other people's way of working. But when we get clear and go, okay, this is where I want to be. This is the kind of mother I want to be. This is the kind of businesswoman I want to be. This is what I want to create in life. And are solid in that. You can back yourself in it, but you can also back yourself in the decisions you make around it. So one of the decisions that I made as a mother is I want to still work. I want to work only in school hours because I want to be there for my kids. So the belief that I needed to let go of was I can't have a successful business and only working school hours. I can't have a successful practice if I don't work weekends. I lose my corporate clientele. So they are some of the beliefs that I had to let go of. And part of it gets to be, well, is that the ultimate truth? Is it the ultimate truth that no corporate client is going to see you outside of business hours? And I was looking at myself, I'm like, okay, I used to be a corporate person. Did I used to have personal appointments in business hours? Well, yeah. It might have been once a fortnight or once a month, but and there were times in the day where it was better than others for me. Might have been in the middle of my lunch hour or first thing in the day or last thing in the afternoon, but it was possible. So I'm like, okay, if it's possible for me, how many corporate clients do I need to create a successful practice? Well, I don't need that many because my clientele is based off corporate clients and non-corporate clients. So it's not my 100% relying. Yes, it's possible. So I'm like, all right, trust that then. It was the same thing when I first started my business and someone told me December is your quietest month. People go away, people are busy for Christmas. And I looked at them and I didn't say it externally, internally went, I'm not going to subscribe to that belief. Because at that time, I was very early on in business. I'm like, I only need 4 clients a week for my business. I was only working 1 day a week. I was doing it part-time. So I'm like, you're telling me there is not 4 people out there in my local area that do not need me for the month of December. I'm like, of course there is. To date, December is always my highest earning month because that's what I believe. Right? So you get to challenge every belief that you have, every lie that you've been told that does not feel good in your body. And as a woman, you know when it feels good or if it doesn't. Right? What feels good, keep it. What feels uneasy, what feels like a hurdle, challenge it. Is this the ultimate truth? Is there anywhere else that I have seen a different version of this? Right? Is it true that women can't be successful in business? Well, go and have a look at all the successful CEOs, all the successful entrepreneurs, all the women doing 6, 7-figure businesses. But not only look at them, study them. Where did they start? Because I can tell you they didn't all start from money. And even if they did, they didn't all start with the belief that they as a woman could make money. They probably, and this is what I find, they probably started with the belief that I can get a good husband that makes money, right? So when we see examples externally of it's possible or it just rationally makes sense, of course, there's 4 clients a week that I can pull from the local community that need my help, then the shift automatically happens inside. You go, yeah, I can get on board with a new belief. What is my new belief? My new belief is that I am working every single day towards a successful business. That I might not have all the skills right here, right now, but I will find them as I go along. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to grow. I'm willing to find the way. That's your ultimate truth.
Oh my gosh. Again, Jennifer, the wisdom in what you are saying is fantastic. I love it so much. I love the idea of remembering to look around and see the examples of what you're looking for, first of all, or the examples that disprove something that somebody has told you or that you thought before, because that's going to change everything when you see what you want to see, right? I mean, it's just the basic brilliance of it. It is fantastic.
What here? Right, it doesn't have to be it's not difficult,
Right.
right? And your world would already be showing you proof to the contrary if it's ready to come up and be rejigged, right? Like I was working with a client years ago, and she, in her business at that time, was earning $12,000, and we brought her 12 to 50 per month. And what she started to see in the world around her was people putting down wealthy people.
Mm,
She started to hear, oh, how can they be charging that much? Or who does she think she is? And I'm like, oh, isn't that interesting? That now that you're at, I think at that time she might have been around the $40,000 mark per month, that you're seeing this. What in you is saying that? And let's shift that so you can continue to earn it.
mm,
So your external environment is already showing you what you're ready to shift.
mm,
And that's why it's there, because you're attracting it to you, because internally, your soul, your intuition, the energy that you are beyond this physical form, it knows your past before you cognitively know it.
mm.
And that's why sometimes when you wake up with this excitement and you kind of don't know what the excitement's for, but you're just feeling it. And it's like, yeah, okay, I'll go along with it. Right? That's because intuitively, your soul knows that there's good stuff that is just around the corner. And the problem that we have as humans, having a human experience, is that we get in the way and we're like, why am I so excited? Right? And then we start to look for our cognitive proof on why we should be excited and we can't find it. So we squash that vibration
Mm,
and it doesn't manifest. So here's the thing. Next time you wake up with this little fire in the belly, this little excitement, go along with it. And the mantra that I have is, this feels good. And I don't know how this is going to manifest in my life, but man, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Thank you for sharing that with us. That's such a great thing to think about and to remember when we feel that
Mm.
instead of looking for the problem in whatever, you think maybe sprouting from it, squash that and just say, what could this possibly be? Like, let's look forward to what this could possibly be. And that is a whole different energy, a whole different level. And that's just awesome. I love it. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
Jennifer, I feel like we could just keep talking for another hour. I really have enjoyed our conversation so much, and you have shared so much amazing knowledge with us. So thank you so much for that. And I want you to share with us the book again, for those listeners that maybe aren't watching on YouTube. Share the title of the book and a little bit more about it, and I'll include that information in the show notes so that the listeners can find it.
So the book is called What Your Body is Telling You About Your Business. And this is like a go-to Bible for anything physical pain. right? So it goes in here through every single muscle, what element of business it's related to, what emotions it's related to, and it actually gives you some deep thought provoking questions to ask yourself to work out why this is happening for you. Like the one that I've just pulled out here is actually quite an interesting one that I've pulled this page because this is the lumbar, right? The lower back. What is this related to in business? This is actually the masculine energy that sits in this.
Mm.
It's related to clients and fees. So when we look at masculine energy, we look at the action orientated, the strategy. The emotions are release and depression. What's depression? Depression is looking back. What is this asking you to do? It's asking you to let go of the past and move forward. Because it's a masculine energy, what's it asking you to do? It's asking you, how? What do you need to do to move forward? Are your fees and your clients in alignment so that you can then move forward? And what do
Mm.
you need to do that? So that's what this whole book is about. And it goes through all the muscles in the body. And it is a great go-to. If any of my friends go, Jennifer, I've got a sore back. I've got this. I've got that. I just go to this, ask them some questions. And the next day, I'm not kidding you, they'll go to me, thank you, the pain's gone. Because they've been able to work through whatever, release whatever emotions been there, understand what they need to do in business to tweak things a little bit. It's amazing. So you can get that on Amazon. I believe in the States as well. It's at Barnes and Nobles. But yeah, Amazon, both US and Australia, it is on.
Perfect. I love it. Again, I will include that information in the show notes. And thank you for sharing that section that you just happened to open it up to. And I have had, to get off topic for a second, I have had a disc injury that keeps flaring up. And so it's so interesting that it's in that lower back area. And that just happened to be the page that you opened to. So that's crazy. No coincidences. There's no coincidences. Yes. So are there any other books that you'd like to share or podcasts maybe that you enjoy listening to that you think the listeners would find beneficial?
I do have a free ebook that you can download, and I'll give you the link to that for your audience. And the ebook is called From Slow to Overflow. And this really looks at the 5 pillars that I have a look at with my private clients. And so it's more than just mindset. It's about the energetics of our life. And it's the 5 pillars, 5 areas of life that we need to have a look at. This ebook will take you through those 5 pillars so you understand not only what they're about, but it deep dives into questions for you to journal on to understand what adjustments that you need to make to help you go from a slow business into overflow.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'll make sure that the link is in there as well for the listeners. Again, Jennifer, it's been fantastic. This conversation has been wonderful. I so appreciate it. But lastly, I do want you to share how the listeners would be able to find you so they can follow along with the work that you're doing. And if they have questions for you, how they might be able to reach you.
Best place to reach me, Desiree, is on Instagram. I'm always there. I have a plethora of content on there and I'm always in my DM. So Jennifer McCormack Wellness is my handle.
Perfect. I'll make sure that's in the show notes as well. Thank you again, Jennifer. I have truly enjoyed our conversation. I appreciate your time and your knowledge and sharing that with us today. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me on.
Good. Well, we'll talk more soon.